Okay, good morning everyone. First off, I just want to speak to Mac and Bella. That was awesome. Really, really good. Guys, there's going to be a lot of takeaways that you're going to pick up from today. And one of the things that I'm going to do now is share my story. I got the privilege of doing this last year. Same audience, same location, sharing some of my story. And I was, I'm very grateful to be invited back. I'm going to ask a question that I don't expect anyone here to answer, but I want you just to think about it. And that question is, who's experienced isolation while at school, particularly throughout that year 10, 11, 12 period? There's going to be times where your friendship group goes through things. You might be in that right now. Or you prioritize study. You put things to the side and say, I'll push everything aside except study because HSC is coming, right? That's fine. But that feeling of isolation can be hard to overcome. So I want to share with you guys a little bit of my story. It's a little bit different. And I'm going to start back in high school, which for me was a long time ago now. But when I was at high school, things were pretty easy. Life was good. I was one of the school captains in my school, did quite well at school, ended up, as I graduated school, doing high-level sporting, high-level everything, and had my choice of where to go to university. And I got into medicine. And I grew up in far north Queensland, in Townsville, actually living out of town, and travelled an hour almost each way to get to school each day. And as such, when I was in year 12, I applied for medicine at the local university up there, which is James Cook University, and I got in. And I was like, this is great. So I thought I'll apply for other unis too and see how I go. So ended up getting a couple of other interviews as well, one of which was with UNSW down here. So because I'd already had an offer to JCU, I came down here feeling pretty confident. Now, my parents had a rule for my brother and I, which now that I'm older and looking back, I realised was to keep us at home, which was, if you want to go away for uni, pay for it yourself. But if you want to stay here, you can rent free, live at home, no problem. So my brother got a scholarship to Melbourne Uni, and he left. And so I came down to UNSW, interviewed for med, and said, well, if you want me to come, give me a scholarship. They said, okay. So that was nice. So I left too. And neither of us went back, it was too hot. So years down the road, my parents ended up moving down here because we wouldn't go back. Now, life was good. Graduated high school went well, moved to Sydney, moved here when I was 17, turned 18 right at the start of uni. And about 6 months in, end of first semester, first year uni, I got glandular fever. But it was unusual and didn't show up on blood tests. Doctors couldn't figure out what it was, unusual representation of it, and ended up being something that dragged for a few months, and I ended up getting really, really sick. I ended up having to defer for a year, try and recover. Came back to it because it had been my dream since year 10. I was like, this is my direction, this is my path. I'm going to do everything I can to get into that. And I knew that's where I wanted to go. And the main driver was, I just want to help people. That was why I wanted to do that. So I went into that and spent that year, tried to recover, came back. When I came back, I noticed everything was different. Couldn't remember things. Things that for school was easy, right? Just had to study, but did work relatively well. Go back to uni, and now suddenly I'm having to work 60, 100 hours a week trying to study, memorize things, learn things. It was a lot harder to remember, which is one of the symptoms of chronic fatigue, which we didn't know at the time. Then noticing that it was harder and harder to get up each day. Again, another symptom of chronic fatigue, but this rolls over into where people go, well, is it depression, anxiety, what's going on? There's a lot of overlap. And so eventually having to go through a series of doctors, and then they find, well, we can't find what's going on. And that's when they put that into a bucket called chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a diagnosis of exclusion. And so I ended up getting sicker and sicker and sicker, but I was determined to keep pushing and keep going, chasing that dream. So I just decided, well, if it's not working, just barrel harder, head first at the problem, study more, try harder, keep going. There's a limit to how much you can do. Now, in all of that time, it was something that barreling headfirst doesn't solve. With chronic fatigue, the harder you push, the harder it pushes back. And one of the things that ended up happening, I ended up getting so far down that fatigue journey that I ended up bedbound for 2 years. And that pushed everything back. Now, as a result of that, I had a decision to make, which was, as a young adult, at this stage, around 21, what direction am I going to take? How do I combat this? What do I do? With that 2 years, that was a time when, throughout high school, had a lot of friends, had friendship groups, came to uni, made lots of friends down here. It was great. When you say no to someone, they're forgiving, it's okay. When you say no again, and again, and again, and again, eventually your friends stop inviting you places. They stop asking you, do you want to come? Why? Because you always say no. Now, some of you will be doing that through your studies right now. You'll be saying no. Well, eventually, it leads to isolation. Now, for mine, that was a medical course. That's fine. Right? And learning the strategies to deal with that, cope with that, come back from that, that was a skill. My journey, coming back from being bedbound for 2 years, it was, well, how do you combat chronic fatigue? Now, I still have it. Okay, this is 20 years down the road. But there is no treatment. There's management, which is learn to live with it. So for me, going from completely bedbound, not able to do anything, I was at my worst, I was 54 kilograms because I couldn't eat. And there was consequences around that. If you ate food or drank water and you are bedbound, think about what happens next. You have to decide every sip of water, is it worth it? So that was tough. Now, part of the management strategy was, okay, well, you need to try what's called graded exercise therapy. All right, cool. I'll give that a go. Now, prior to that, I played A-grade tennis. I was in the university games for 100-metre sprinting. I was really, really good at athletics, good at music, just had fun in life, right? Now, all that was taken away, and so they told me, graded exercise therapy, go try something. And I was thinking, well, what do I do? I don't want to go back to something I used to do and then be really crap at it now. So instead, I thought I'll try something I've never tried. I always wanted to do martial arts, but it wasn't really available around where I was. And so I thought, well, I've never done that before. I like kicking stuff, so I'll go give that a go. So I thought, well, this will be interesting. I called up, and the person who answered was the founder of the school I'm at now, is Grandmaster Ridvan. Really nice guy, really scary guy. Back then, he was the national coach of the Taekwondo team. And I didn't know any of this when I called up, right? He just answered the phone. And I said, oh, hi, and I introduced myself, said, this is what I've got. I've been in bed pretty much for 2 years, like not expecting anyone would want to take someone like me on. And he goes, come down, we'll help you. And I thought, oh, okay, give that a go. Came in, he said, let me introduce you to someone. And I met someone who's now one of my best friends, who was my first teacher at that time, Sarah, in martial arts. And she came over and she said, I'm actually studying exercise science and dietetics at uni right now, and we're doing chronic fatigue. Can I chat to you? I was like, yeah, sure. So my first lesson, I walked in and literally I did one punch, which was more movement than I'd done in 2 years, did one punch and I just collapsed in the middle of the mat. She just grabbed my elbows and sat me down. 20 minutes later, came over, picked me back up. I did one more punch and then went home. I felt so good. It was more than I'd done in 2 years. It was great. Just before I left, she goes, so your fatigue level's really, really high. Would you like to know how to make someone jump with just 2 fingers? And I was like, that'd be great. And she's like, let me show you. And so she taught me this little pressure point technique, and I was like, that's cool. Went home. My brother goes to me, so is that martial arts thing any good? I'm like, come here. Jumped. It was great. I came back 2 days later, so did he. He was like, you are not learning any of this without me. So he joined up as well. Anyway, we start going down that journey, and for me, every time I went, every couple of days, I could do a little bit more than 2 days previous. And that's what graded exercise therapy was. At first, it was start by trying to do 10 steps a day. And then I was like, well, this is boring. I used to run 100-meter sprinting. It was 10 steps a day. This is stupid. So it was, okay, let's do more. And what I found was through martial arts, it was like a series of belts, right? Every belt you get was like leveling up your health. And so it was like, okay, I've achieved this next level. After about 3 years, I was approaching quite high up in the coloured belt system, getting closer to that black belt, and I had a decision to make. Do I go back to uni, pick up where I left off, and continue chasing that original dream? Or do I look at, is there another path in life that's going to lead me somewhere different? Now, the overall goal was I want to help people. So I ended up pivoting and thinking, well, there's an opportunity here through martial arts where I can potentially help other people. And that's what I did. I started teaching. Just teaching a couple of kids' classes and then moving forward. Continued that rate of progression. Continued trying to figure out how can we do this to better serve our community. In that time, growing the academy, growing the school into what is now an absolutely fantastic school with nearly 2,000 students and 5 locations from way back at those beginnings. Now, for us, it's enabled us as an organisation to help so many people, and that's because of me recognising and my team around me recognising that there's an opportunity here to help a lot of people. And part of that conversation around that, and there's a lot more to this story, but this is something that, we could flesh out over a couple of hours, but in 15 minutes, the biggest part today is about strong minds, strong leaders. So the biggest part in all of this was recognising in that moment where I was sick, I lost the ability and became quite isolated due to illness. And a lot of you can resonate with that and say at different points in time I've experienced that through, it could be through high school bullying, it could be through your own study choices, saying, well, this is what I need to donate time to right now, and it ends up isolating you. I have had many students over the years. One comes to mind very recently, having a conversation with her, where she was isolated by a group of friends at school and basically pushed her to the side. And so she was like, okay, I'll go make another friendship group. And I've heard this story multiple times over the years, and so she goes over to that, but that group then poisoned this other group, again, trying to make her feel isolated. It's not a unique story. It happens every day in schools across Australia and the world. But what she has is something really special. Through martial arts, she's got a community that's not at school. It's her own community. And that actually has allowed her to do it. And that's sort of the one of the biggest things I want you guys to take away from today. Isolation happens every day. It happens everywhere. Some of it's out of your control. Mine was out of my control. But you can build a community around you, and you should, outside of school. Find people, be authentic, like Max said, right? Find your own voice, find who you want to be and build that community. Thankfully, we've been able to do that, and some of you I recognise are in that community. Okay, I can see some of you here today, but what's going to be really important is recognising how can you positively impact your community, who do you want to be, what vision do you want to create, and how are you going to take steps towards building the future you want to have. As a final thought, before I take any questions you guys have about this, this is my story, right? It's a very condensed version, but don't be afraid at your level to think more broadly about what leadership means, about what sort of person you want to become, and at your age should be about skill acquisition. What skills do you want to have? There was an instructor when I started who gave me a piece of advice, and it's something that stuck with me. It was, by the time you're 25, you'll be able to have the amount of true friends you have on one hand. And I was pretty young at the time when she said that to me, and I was really sick. And I was thinking, I can think of one person maybe. By the time I was 25, sometimes goes up by one or two, comes down by one or two, but it was pretty much spot on. Now there's a further layer to this, and this is something you've probably heard of but not related this way before. By the time you're 35, you're going to have 5 people in your orbit who influence you in a certain way. They determine who you're going to be. If those 5 people drag you down, draw down, negative, take energy away from you, it pulls you down, it slows you down. But if you surround yourself by 5 people who lift you up, who motivate you, who challenge you, who encourage you, you're going to find that all of a sudden you're propelling your learning, your skills, your life so much faster. Think about this. This doesn't have to be physical people in your orbit either. You can be inspired by the CEO of a company that you're looking at going, man, how did they get that life? I want to have that life. Go read their books, follow them online, look at the journey they had, and then start replicating some of those steps yourself. That can be one of your 5. But think about, how are you going to leave a positive impact on the people around you, have a strong mindset, have the ability to become someone who is a leader for the future. And that's why you guys are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, I'm Valentina from Fairfield High School. I was just thinking, what is an advice would you give to a person that is dealing with isolation but is too scared to talk about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what advice would I give to someone who's dealing with isolation but not necessarily wanting to talk about it? Find and start the first steps to building something for yourself. When it's led by others, people have control over that. The only thing you can control is yourself. It's the truest version of this, and the best analogy is picturing this. When I was 19 and 20, I could not move, I could not get out of bed. I had zero control over my own body at that stage. Like, you're counting the steps from your bed to the bathroom. That's your daily goal, right? If you're in that moment, that's isolation. You can't control those things, but there are certain things you can control, right? So if you are someone who's dealing with that level of isolation, look to build a community. Get out, find an activity that inspires you. Find a group that you want to become part of that is a new group, and start to expand your skills. Learn something new, do something. That is the job of anyone between 15 and 25, is skill acquisition. Who do you want to become? So start gathering as many different skill sets as you can. Find a group. Find something new and different to engage in, because at the end of the day, we're social creatures. We want a group around us. So find your own group would be the biggest thing.
Hi, I'm Lily. I also have a chronic condition. I tore 2 ligaments in my ankle, and it's not going to get better without surgery. It'll never get better even with surgery. How do you find the motivation to move past your medical, stuff? Because personally, I find it's really hard to go to physio and do all that stuff, and it's so isolating because I can't do the activities that other people can. I can't jump on the trampoline with my cousins and stuff. So how did you move past that self-deprivation and just go straight towards your goal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So One, I'm so sorry to hear that that's happened to you, but it gives you an opportunity now. And the opportunity is, how do you make the most with what you've got, and how do you then try and have a positive impact on the people around you? So for me, I still go home every day, and no one sees this part. I still go home every day, and when I hit that ceiling, hit that limit, I can't move, talk, I'm just done, right? That's it, and can be quite hard. I remember literally one of the first moments, the first date I went on with my wife, when we went on a date, and I literally reached a point where I just was so tired, it's not tiredness, it's fatigue, it's a level above that for those who understand, but I reached a point where I couldn't talk. She thought, he doesn't like me. Right? It wasn't that. It was just that I couldn't talk anymore. But in answering that, it's kind of like life takes things away from you, and you can focus on the things you can't do, or you can try and find the things you can do. And that's what you have to do. You have to create that mindset. It's so common, and I used to be part of these groups around young people with chronic illnesses, and I found that they never went anywhere. They were still in the same spot 5 years down the road, which there's nothing wrong with. But I didn't want to be in the same spot 5 years down the road. I wanted to grow, change, learn something new, evolve. So the question was, okay, well, if I can't do that, what can I do? And find the thing you can do, find something new. The options are almost limitless, right? So you just got to find what your passion is and see if there's a way you can inspire others while you're doing it, because that's what gives you some energy back. Hope that helps.
I'm also from the same school as Lily.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, after hearing your story, you seem very disciplined and very resilient. How do you teach that to some people, like, especially that you care about? You don't want to leave them behind, or you don't want to seem like alienated. Like, how do you teach discipline and resilience to other people?
Great question. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, in saying that, you have to be someone who inspires others, right? You can create the structure for people to be successful, but at the end of the day, they have to take those steps themselves. It is exactly the same concept with adults and weight loss, for example. If you have adults in your orbit who need to go through a weight loss journey, you can buy them the books, encourage all this stuff, but until they make the decision to do it, you can't. But if that environment doesn't exist around them, well, then it's set up for failure. So if you want to have that structured approach for mental resilience, for discipline, for leadership, for a future benefit, you have to create the environment around you that will support those actions. If your environment has no discipline, has no structure, has no control, you're not going to be able to instill that yourself. So start with controlling the environment. Yeah.
I have a question. My name is Loughran. I'm from Loughran High School. What martial arts academy did you go to, and what martial arts did they perform?
Yeah, so I'm one of the head instructors now at Australian Martial Arts Academy, which is where I started. So we are in Auburn, Concord, Marrickville, Sydenham and Sylvania. So the primary style that we do is Taekwondo, which is a stand-up hands and kicking base, because everyone loves to kick things. And I'm a 5th degree black belt in that now. And I teach anywhere from 40 to 60 classes a week, right? Because for me, movement is what keeps my energy high. But for the other programs we run, we also have a Kung Fu program, which is brilliant. We also have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, which is just phenomenal. It's like the chess of the martial arts world. We also have a tricking program, which is the acrobatics and flips side, which is awesome as well. And we also have a ton of different other programs like leadership programs, things like that, because that comes hand in hand with martial arts. So there's a lot in there as well.
My name's Killian from Penrith High School.
Yep.
I was going to ask you, how did you actually motivate yourself to stick to a routine and commit to, the change that you saw?
How do you motivate yourself to make a routine and stick to it? The easiest answer to that is when you are extremely ill with something, you have no choice. That's the easiest thing to sort of say. It's one of those things, if you don't do it, there is literal real life consequences to not doing that. But once you recognize, humans are based on a reward system. Our psychology is based on rewards. We like to get things right. We like to be successful. We like to do well. So what you want to do is create almost a reward pathway for yourself. When you recognize, hey, I'm doing this action and it's giving me a good result. I feel better when I do this. I like trying to be healthy. I like trying to do these things. Repeat successful actions. So constantly experiment within yourself. This is something similar to what Bella said, but it's get comfortable being uncomfortable. Put yourself in situations where you got to learn new skills, where you got to try other things, and that's something that's coming up multiple times today.
Thank you. We have run out of time, so can we give him a round of applause?
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Ethan. Leave that one.